All glories to Śrīla Prabhupāda. Hare Krishna, everyone. Good morning here on the East Coast of Canada and America. And throughout the world, we want to welcome you to our weekly Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam class. We have 3 classes that we conduct every week as part of our sadhana program for ourselves and everyone else. That's Wednesday night Chaitanya Charitamrita class, Eastern Time, 8 p.m. Saturday morning here from Eastern Canada at 10 a.m., the Bhagavad Gita as it is. And we're reading on Sunday as well from the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. And we have the wonderful opportunity to have the editions that were printed before Prabhupada's arrival in America in 1965. Prabhupada began this process. Well, it was throughout his life he was preparing, a lifetime in preparation. So these books, pre-ISKCON, give us a lot of insight into Prabhupada's mission, his goal, to spread Krishna consciousness exactly the way his guru taught him, unchanged. And that was his unique position, that despite, so many people in the Gaudiya Math trying to change the philosophy to suit their own personal motive or purpose, Prabhupada simply followed in the footsteps of his spiritual master. And that is, Vijaya Pandit in Italy, that is what we want to do with our group, is follow in the footsteps of the pure devotee. Repeat his words as you hear them. Study the books and repeat the philosophy the way you understand it. And follow all of the directions that he gave in terms of how to propagate his movement after his departure. This is the problem that's come about, that there's been so many people, God brothers of ours, who have manufactured different points of view to justify their compromised positions as so-called leaders of a spiritual movement. This goes on in many groups after the departure of the founder, and especially it's found in this group. And there's so much confusion and chaos as a result of it. And this is unfortunate. So remember, everyone, we're reading from the unchanged books. There are edited books that were done by our God brothers for their particular purpose. And this changing of the books is a very serious issue, because where is the authority after it's changed? It becomes adulterated. So you'll hear Yashodanandana speaking about that, the unadulterated, unedited books. And this is the foundation of our missionary work. So my point is, we're propagating a Namhata program for everyone, using these different tools of the internet to facilitate it. In other words, many of us are on our own, everyone is on their own, but we're also on our own in our own particular preaching areas. But we're using this tool of the internet, the Zoom meeting facility, to give people a chance to discuss philosophy, to ask questions, and to hear about the transcendental pastimes of the Lord from the lips of the pure devotee. And this becomes a source of inspiration. I know a lot of people that attend our classes send us compliments. Oh, I felt ecstatic after today's program. I felt very blissful after today's program. Thank you for conducting these classes. It's a breath of fresh air in this fog of material existence. So thank you everyone for participating. I see we already have 20 people here. It's already 10:07. And we're going to move forward with our reading of the diaries of Śrīla Prabhupāda. I was looking at a comment from Bhagawan Das, who's on my Facebook page this morning, and he was saying, well, most people have no idea of the history of Śrīla Prabhupāda's early days, especially in the modern operation of ISKCON. They're more interested in telling their stories of how they became devotees and how they have emerged as great acharyas within this so-called mission they're running. And they're ignoring Prabhupada's history. The most important thing is to hear about the glories of the spiritual master, his entire biography. And what better way than through his actual diaries? This eliminates any kind of mental concoction that so many authors contrive in order to justify who they are. Justify, compromise, rationalize who they are because they were with Śrīla Prabhupada. The main thing is to hear from the spiritual master and repeat exactly what he says. So here, we're going to read from the diaries. And we're at February 10th, 1966. Now, it's very interesting to note how progressive Prabhupada was in reaching out to others, especially important people in the community, to try to bring about an interest in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and the mission of Lord Chaitanya amongst the fallen animalistic society here in the West. February 10th, His Divine Grace Prabhupada's event ceremony today. I'm changing my room, so that's Bhaktisiddhanta's advent of I'm changing my room from 501 to 307, and it's rented. So I believe that's going to happen on the 15th. The following letters are sent. Postmaster Zone number 10023, U.S. Mail, change of room. Now he's sending a letter to the New York Times. New editor, 229 West 43rd Street, New York. He's sending next another letter to the New York Herald Tribune, 230 West 41st Street, New York. And on number 4 here, he's sending New York News Daily a letter for Sunday, 420 East 42nd Street, New York. All requests to public news of Hare Kirtan. It's embarrassing, isn't it, to see how incompetent we are in not reaching out to others, important people in our own personal communities, and propagating this philosophy to them like Prabhupada did. Delivered personally at the respective offices. Oh, he went personally. I've taken possession of the room number 307 from today through, although the rent will be charged from the 15th to the 15th. So we moved in early, 5 days early. No facility in the room, by the way. There was no cooking facility and no washroom. So he was still using other people's facilities, but living very humbly, like a sage from Vrindavan. Expenditure postage, 28 cents. He's keeping track of his money very carefully, not wasting it on useless travel. Friday, 11th of February, the peon has noted down about my change of room. Following letters were posted to the newspapers. The Morning Telegram, 525 West 52nd Street, New York City. Number 2, the Times Mirror Company, 280 Park Avenue, New York City. Radio stations. Number 1, radio station master, NBC, 30 Rockefeller Plaza, New York City. Number 2, radio station master, WOR, 1440 Broadway, New York City. And 3, radio station master, YNYC, Municipal Building, New York. Expenditure butter, 20 cents. There was no response of the visitors invited to come and join Hare Kirtan this evening at 7:30 p.m. Was he discouraged? Nobody came. Nobody cared. But I alone executed the Kirtan ceremony with my tape recorder until 10 p.m. Completely detached from the results. Simply carry on with the mission. Don't be attached to the results. February 12th, that's Saturday, 1966. Another day in eternity. Mrs. Charlotte LeBlanc was to come here in the morning. I waited for her till 10:50 o'clock, but she did not turn up. What else is new? Expenditure, bus fare, 60 cents. Received the following letters from the Rockefeller Foundation and Mrs. Sally Agarwal in Ohio. And Mrs. Charlotte LeBlanc was contacted by phone. She will come on Monday in the evening after 7. February 13th, 1966, Mr. Cohen promised to come at my place by 3 o'clock afternoon, but he did not turn up. Another failed appointment. Today, the whole day was raining. Talked with Mr. Mukherjee of 9 LaSalle by telephone. Also with Mrs. J.K. Banerjee, correspondent of Hindustan Standard. He has given his phone number as follows: PL4 1234, extension 2180. No expenditures. And here we'll look here. I think I sent one more. February 14th, 1966. Today I tried to contact Cohen by phone, but he was not available. I went to see him at his place at about 4:30, but he was not available. Hopeless. I have advised the president of Paragon Book Gallery to receive 25 cents sent by Sally Agarwal. He was noted the message. Expenditure, vegetables and butter, 95 cents. And the bus fare, 30 cents. And on Tuesday, February 15th, 1966, Śrīla Prabhupāda. Today, Cohen and Salek came. They have some difficulty. Mrs. LeBlanc also attended the class from 6 to 7:30 p.m. So you had 3 people at the class. Tried to contact Mr. Banerjee, but not successful. No letter received and no expenditures. Proposal for Gita editing made to Mrs. LeBlanc, and she's almost agreed. We're very meticulously monitoring his success and failure moving forward. In February of 1966 in New York City, Śrīla Prabhupāda is completely on his own. He has no support from India, no support from local people, constantly being rejected by everyone, but still he does not give up. He has complete faith in Krishna and his guru, Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. All glories to Śrīla Prabhupada and his mission to bring Krishna consciousness to the Western world. We're going to go ahead with the chanting of Hare Krishna, and then our regular weekly Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam reading and discussion led by Yashodanandana Prabhu, who's up in Twain Harte, California, suffering through the cold weather, wind and rain and snow. Hare Krishna.
Sai. Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Jaya Radha Punya Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Saman Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavindra ki jai. Namacharya Śrīla Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Sam Kund Radha Kund Giridham ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Navadvip Dham ki jai. Swami Ito Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Ganga Mai ki jai. Jamuna Mai ki jai. Tulasi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Swami Ito Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories to the assembled Lord. All glories to the assembled Lord. Thank you very much.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. O my Lord Sri Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, the all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 1:1:1. Narayanam namaskritya naram cheva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudirayat. One should utter the means of conquest Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam after offering respectful obeisances, 1. to the personality of Godhead Narayana, 2. to the Narayana Rishi, who is the supermost human being, 3. to the Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, then 4. to Śrīla Vyāsadeva, the author, from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 1-4. Welcome everyone to this reading and discussion on Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. As we do every week, we will be reading a few selected verses from the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam itself, explaining the meaning and importance and benefit of hearing this great transcendental literature. We will be reading from Canto 1, Chapter 2, text number 16, 17, 18, 19. Text 16. Shushrushoho shraddadhanasya Vasudeva katha ruchihi Syanmahat sevaya vipra punyatirtha nishevanat. O the twice-born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all ranges of vice, a standard of great service is done. And as the result of such great service, affinity in the message of Vasudeva is made possible. Text number 17. Shrinvatam svakatah Krishna Punyashravana kirtanaham Hridyantastoya bhadrani vidhunoti suritsatam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is also the Paramatma in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, does cleanse the desire from material enjoyment in the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge for hearing his, Krishna's messages, which are themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Text number 18. Nashtaprayeshu vabhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya Bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. By regular attendance in the Bhagavat class or rendering service unto the pure devotees, all that is inauspicious in the heart of a candidate becomes destroyed almost to nil, and thus loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, comes into being an irrevocable fact. Text 19. Tadarajastamo bhava kamalo bhadayaschaye cheta eterana viddam stitam sattve prasidati. As soon as irrevocable loving service is fixed up in one's heart, at that time the effects of the nature's mode of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire and hankerings, etc., do disappear from one's heart, and he becomes fixed up in the mode of goodness, which makes him completely happy. Very, very important messages. As we've read a few weeks ago from a compilation that was done during the manifested presence of His Divine Grace, Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupāda, he had his disciple compile a book called Gaudiya Canto R, which is a selection of verses from Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and other scriptures in different categories for all the preachers of the mission. I'm just going to read one or two of them. Translation may or may not be the perfect, but this is from Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 7, Text 6 and 7. Anarto pasamam sakshad bhakti yogam adokshaje lokasya janato vidvams chakri sattva samhitam yasyam ve shryamanayam krishne paramapurushe bhaktirutpadati pumsaha shoka moha bhayapaha. The material miseries of the living entity, which are superfluous to him, can be directly mitigated by the linking process of devotional service, but the mass of people do not know this. Therefore, the great sage Vyasa compiled his Vedic literature, which is in relation to the supreme truth. Simply by hearing this Vedic literature, the feeling for devotional service to Krishna sprouts up at once to extinguish the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness within the heart. Then we have another text from Bhagavatam, Canto 12, Chapter 13, Text 18. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Puranamamalam Yed Vaishnavanam Priyam Yasmin Paramahamsyamekam Amalam Jnanam Param Giyate Tatra Jnana Viraga Bhakti Sahitam Nishkarmyam Avishkritam Tatshrinvam Supatan Vicharana Paro Bhaktya Vimuchenaraha. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the spotless Purana. It is especially dear to the Vaishnavas. It has knowledge that is especially appreciated by the Paramahamsas. When carefully studied, heard and understood again and again, it opens the door to pure devotion, through which one never returns to the bondage of illusion. Again, thanks everybody for participating in this auspicious Sunday morning program of hearing of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Today we will be reading from Canto 1, Chapter 4. Don't have the exact text here. Just one second. Text 8, 17 and 18. All synonyms, translations, and purports by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, also known as the Krishna Consciousness Movement. Text 17 and 18. Bhautikanam cha bhavanam shaktirasam cha tatkritam ashradharan nisatvam durmedan rasita yushaha janan vikshya munir divyena chakshusha sarva varnashramanam yadadhu vitam amogadrik. Bhautikanam cha, also of everything that is made of matter. Bhavanam, actions. Shakti rasamscha, deterioration of natural power. Tatkritam, rendered by that. Ashradadhanam, of the faithless. Nisatvam, impatient due to want of the mode of goodness. Rasita, reduced. Ayusha, of duration of life. Durbhagamscha, also the unlucky. Jalan, people in general. Viksha, by seeing. Munir, the muni. Divyena, by transcendental. Chakshusha, vision. Sarva, all. Varnashramanam, of all the status and orders of life. Yad, what? Dadho, contemplated. Hitam, welfare. Amogadrik, one who is fully equipped in knowledge. Translation by His Divine Grace, Śrīla Prabhupāda. The great sage who is fully equipped in knowledge could see by his transcendental vision about deterioration of everything made of matter rendered by the influence of the age, as also he could see the faithless people in general reduced in duration of life and impatient due to lack of the quality of goodness. Thus, he contemplated for the welfare of men in all status and orders of life. Purport. The non-manifested forces of time is so powerful that it reduces all matters into decaying in due course. As such, the Kali Yuga, being the last millennium of a round of the 4 millenniums, the power of all material objects deteriorates by such influence of time. In this age, duration of the material body of the people in general is much reduced, and so also the memory. The action of matter is also not so much incentive. The land does not produce any more food, grains, in the same proportion as it did in other ages. The cow does not give so much milk as it used to give formerly. The production of vegetable and fruits are all less than before. As such, all the living beings, both men and animals, do not have sumptuous, nourishing food, and due to want of so many necessities of life, naturally the duration of life is reduced. The memory is short, intelligence is meager, mutual dealings are full of hypocrisy, and so on. The great sage Vyāsadeva could see them all by his transcendental vision on account of his becoming the liberated soul. As an astrologer can see the future fate of a man, or an astronomer can foretell by calculation about the solar and lunar eclipses in future dates, similarly, those who can see through the scriptures about the future of all mankind are called liberated souls. They can see so on account of their sharp vision by spiritual attainment. And all such transcendentalists who are naturally devotee of the Lord are always busy for rendering welfare service to the people in general. Such transcendentalists are real friends of the people in general than the so-called public leaders who are unable to see what is going to happen 5 minutes ahead. In this age, the people in general, as well as their so-called leaders, are all unlucky fellows, faithless in the spiritual knowledge, and being influenced by the age of Kali, are always disturbed by various diseases and other disturbances. For example, at the present age, there are so many TB patients in TB hospitals, but formerly it was not so because the time was not so much unfavorable. These unfortunate men of this age are always reluctant to give a reception to the transcendentalists who are representatives of Śrīla Vyāsadeva, and yet such selfless workers are always busy in planning something which may help everyone in all status and orders of life. So the greatest philanthropists are those transcendentalists who represent the mission of Vyasa, Narada, Madhva, Chaitanya, Rupa, Saraswati, etc. They're all one and the same because the personalities may be different, but the aim of vision is one and the same, namely to deliver the fallen soul back to home, back to Godhead. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Bhakti Siddhanta Shishyayam Bhakti Vedanta Namine Prasannaya Prashantaya Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Bhagavad Vandanam Kadyam Guru Vandana Purvakam Kshiram Sharkara Yuktam Kadatihi Visheshataham Adadana Danter Idam Yachi Punaha Punaha Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Bhoja Dhulisyam Janma Janmani Amsho Bhagavatusmyaham Sadadaso Asmi Sarvata Tatkripa Pikshako Nityam Tatprishta Satkarumishvam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. There was a very interesting conversation in the Śrīla Prabhupada conversation book where Śrīla Prabhupada is discussing with one Indian gentleman about the message of the Vedas and the message of the Bhagavad Gita. So the Indian gentleman at one point says, well, what about the gopis? It's not mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. And Prabhupada's reply was, well, first you understand that you're not the body. The first lesson in Bhagavad Gita is given in chapter 2, texts 11, 12, and 13. Dehenosmin yata dehe kaumaram yovanam jara. That you are not the body. And at the end of life, you will get another body. Tata dehantara praptir. First you understand this. Then you can talk about the gopis. Now, this is a very important point. What Prabhupada was trying to convey and articulate is that there's a process. There's a system to understand the absolute truth. While it's very interesting to discuss various procedures, various paths, and various ways that different individuals can make spiritual advancement or progressive advancement, in order to successfully practice spiritual life, one has to take shelter of a realized, liberated soul. We see that when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in Varanasi, he had discussions with Prakashananda Saraswati, a very great famous scholar and impersonalist. And as part of these discussions, there's a very nice explanation in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, how great personalities like Vedavyas and others are perfect in their rhetorical arrangements. In other words, what they say is not like the statements of a conditioned soul. Brahm pramad vipralipsa karanapatava arsha vignya nahi dosha esava. That those great sages, great personalities, liberated souls, who are not subject to the four defects of conditional existence, to cheat, to be illusioned, to make mistakes, like that, they're not subjected to these defects official for the conditioned soul. Similarly, the writings of Vedavyasa, the composition of the Vedanta Sutra, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, and everything, is very beneficial for the conditioned soul. It is perfect literature. It's important to understand because there's some class, here we go. Here's the exact text. Thank you, Venkat Prabhu. Brahm pramad vipralipsa karanapatava arsha vignya vakye nahi dosha esava. Let's read the translation. Mistakes, illusions, cheating, and defective perception do not occur in the sayings of the authoritative sages. Purport. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam has listed the avatars, the plenary expansions of the Purusha, and Lord Krishna appears among them. But the Bhagavatam further explains Lord Krishna's specific position as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Since Lord Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, reason and argument establish that his position is always supreme. Had Krishna been a plenary expansion of Narayana, the original verse would have been differently composed. Indeed, its order would have been reversed. But there cannot be mistakes, illusion, cheating, or imperfect perception in the words of liberated sages. Therefore, there is no mistake in this statement that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Sanskrit statements of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam are all transcendental sounds. Śrīla Vyāsadeva revealed these statements after perfect realization, and therefore they are perfect. For liberated sages like Vyāsadeva never commit errors in their rhetorical arrangements. Unless one accepts this fact, there is no use in trying to obtain help from the revealed scriptures. Brahma refers to false knowledge or mistakes, such as accepting a rope as a snake or an oyster shell as gold. Pramada refers to inattention or misunderstanding of reality, and vipralipsa is the cheating propensity. Karanapatava refers to imperfectness of the material senses. There are many examples of such imperfection. The eyes cannot see that which is very distant or very small, One cannot even see his own eyelid, which is the closest thing to his eye. And if one is disturbed by a disease like jaundice, he sees everything to be yellow. Similarly, the ears cannot hear distant sounds. Since the personality of Godhead in his plenary portions and self-realized devotees are all transcendently situated, they cannot be misled by such deficiencies. Now, why are we reading this? This is a very important point. We often find there's a class of neophytes or persons with a poor fund of knowledge who think themselves very advanced or very scholarly, and they will try to find fault with the arrangements, the rhetorical arrangements of a liberated soul like Śrīla Prabhupāda. Why is that? Why do they engage like this? Well, one thing is, it's important to understand the context, the educational context of the Western countries especially. It's a materialistic environment where spiritual knowledge is not taught in educational institution. There is some religious teaching of some sort, but we're talking about detailed spiritual knowledge, such as what is given in Bhagavad Gita, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, the Puranas, the Samhitas, the Pancharatras, the Vedas, very detailed knowledge of everything. The position of the living entity, the position of the material world, how and why does the living entity suffers, life in other planets, the creation of the world, how does everything become manifested, what happens after the time of death, who is the supreme being, who is God, what does he do, what does he look like, where does he live, what are his qualities, what are his activities. This is the system of transcendental knowledge, Bhagavata Jnana, Bhagavata Dharma. And a personality like Prabhupada, a fully liberated soul, is fully empowered to deliver the message of Vyāsadeva and these other liberated acharyas. This is called Amnaya or Parampara, the transcendental knowledge of disciplic succession. Recently, there has been some discussion on the internet of a sannyasi from another institution who was complaining about mission drift. And after I was listening to him, I was reading a section how Prabhupada explains how does the sampradaya or the disciplic succession becomes broken. Because in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains in chapter 4, text number 2, Evam parampara paptam imam rajarichayo viduhu sakalenaha yoga yogo nashta parantapa. That I'm going to teach you this knowledge, Arjuna. Lord Krishna is explaining to Arjuna, I'm going to teach you this knowledge because the old transcendental system has been broken. Yogo nashta. And Prabhupada, in many conversations, many lectures, in his books, explains how does the disciplic system become broken. Many different explanations. One of such explanation, Prabhupada says, when there are false spiritual masters. Another explanation, when people change the meaning, change the message. Another explanation, Prabhupada is given, when the followers do not follow the instruction, deviate from the instruction. Just like Prabhupada was asked directly, what is the meaning of this verse in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita? And Prabhupada said, well, just like in my presence, you are following, you're doing this, you are preaching, following the principle, chanting. After I leave, if you do not follow, then it is broken. So this is a very important point because we see that many persons have sophisticated explanations why there are problems. But they don't really go to the root cause of the problem. They don't analyze the root cause of the problem. They don't admit and see that they are the cause of the problem with a concocted, self-appointed system that was not set up, that was not given by the liberated Acharya Śrīla Prabhupāda. Now, this is important because people will often say, well, why do you keep talking about this all the time? Why? Because people are being misled. So many persons are being confused. The message is not being properly presented. For example, the person was complaining how in some temple, some person was worshiping a demigod, chanting a demigod mantra. Well, where did this nonsense come from? Why did the thing get started? Or some car pujas, or some other concocted bhajans or so-called mantras not given and not authorized by the founder, Śrīla Prabhupāda. Who is allowing this nonsense? Who is promoting this nonsense? It's one thing to say that we have a problem. Where did the problem come from? We're not trying to point fingers. We're not trying to find fault. We're not trying to accuse anybody. But these things have happened because of deviations and not following the instruction of the Acharya Śrīla Prabhupāda. Prabhupada has given very specific instruction, specifically in the last few months of his manifested presence, how he wanted everything in his society, in his organization to continue. But some people thought they were more intelligent than Prabhupada. They had their own ideas. They had their own plans, their own schemes of taking over his assets. This is called Guru Bhogi. There are three principles. One is called Guru Sevi, to become a humble servant of the spiritual master. One is Guru Drohi, one who is ungrateful to his spiritual master, something we should avoid. And Guru Bhogi, one who wants to enjoy the assets, the material assets of the spiritual master. Our point should become a Guru Sevi. That is the mentality. One should go beyond the materialistic devotee stage of being attached to property. Otherwise, if one disobeys the instruction of the spiritual master, what will happen? You'll fall in Maya again. You start thinking, this is mine, this is yours, this is my property, this is my zone, this is your zone, this is my money, this is his money. This is all nonsense. None of it belongs to you, to anyone. All the assets of the movement belong to Lord Chaitanya and his pure devotee, Śrīla Prabhupāda. Everything should be made or used for the service of the pure devotee. No one should think that he is the proprietor. There's a very important purport in the 9th canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, where Śrīla Prabhupada explains there are many karmis in the dress of devotees in the Krishna consciousness movement. And Prabhupada keeps explaining that the personality of Godhead is expert to detect them. No one should think that they own anything. We are here for a short period of time, and by the mercy of the pure devotee, we get the chance to render some service. One should not become puffed up, thinks he deserves some special praise, some special distinction, some special position. This is all nonsense. All nonsense. We'll leave it at that for now, and we can resume discussion later. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for your explanation today of the verses from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and an understanding of how these messages can become changed through manufacturing different points of view for selfish reasons. Because, Prabhus, this world is an illusion. And due to so many coverings, we can understand who we are. This is the problem. Now Krishna has explained what is the actual purpose of human life and how valuable it is compared to the animal life. We see so many people in the morning when we go for japa walk, leading the dogs down the street, or the dogs are leading them, I should say. So Prabhupada, in Toronto, I've told this story a few times, but it's so fresh in our minds because it was so humorous. All of us were there in the Don Valley Park, Yashodanandana Prabhu. And they had just put up a new sign, stoop and scoop. Back then in the 70s, they didn't have that rule. So people were letting their dogs pass anywhere. They introduced the rule. Prabhupada took his cane. He looked at the sign. He pointed up with his cane. And all of us, there was about 30 people on the walk. We were all like looking up according to his direction, like this. Stoop and scoop. He goes, oh, this is the difference between us and them. They worship DOG and we worship GOD. This is animal life. Animal life is a life of misery and confusion. And the purpose of these programs is to give us an insight into what our purpose is, which is to become enlightened by the mercy of the pure devotee through transcendental sound vibration. And this is the purpose of human life, to hear from the pure devotee. And that's why we stress so much that we should always hear the philosophy as it is, unadulterated by the grace of Śrīla Prabhupāda. I want to go to, I thought it was important today that we just go quickly through a few verses from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, text 21 starting. We're going to read the verses just for time's sake, because we have different people we want to hear from. So we'll go straight to the verse. Thank you. O Partha, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, unborn, eternal, and immutable kill anyone or cause anyone to kill? Text 22. As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, similarly, the soul accepts new bodies, giving up the old and useless ones. Text 23. The soul can never be cut into pieces by any weapons, nor can he be burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. Text 24. The individual soul is unbreakable and insoluble and can be neither burnt nor dried. He is everlasting, all-pervading, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. Text 25. It is said that the soul is invisible, inconceivable, immutable, unchangeable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. Text 26. If, however, you think that the soul is perpetually born and always dies, still you have no reason to lament, O mighty armed. So Krishna speaking to Arjuna. For one who has taken birth, text 27, death is certain. And for one who is dead, birth is certain. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty to serve Krishna, you should not lament. Text 28, all created beings are manifest in their beginning, manifest in their interim state, and unmanifest again when they are annihilated. So what is the need for lamentation? Text 29. Some look on the soul as amazing, some describe him as amazing, and some hear of him as amazing, while others, even after hearing about him, cannot understand him at all. The modern day animal society cannot understand who they are. O descendant of Bharat, he who dwells in the body is eternal and can never be slain. Joe Felice. Therefore you need not grieve for any creature. And then Krishna concludes to Arjuna, considering your specific duty as a Kshatriya, you should know that there is no better engagement for you than fighting on religious principles. And there is no need for hesitation. So very deep insights directly from Krishna on who we are. We are the spirit soul, eternal servants of the pure devotee, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Yashodanandana, please.
Very important points which are being raised here. When we study the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, I hear often devotees tell me that we should skip the word for word that is given and go straight into the reading of the verse and the purport. Well, it's an interesting idea, except that Prabhupada didn't tell us to do that. Prabhupada on numerous occasions told his disciples that they should study every word from his books. On one occasion, Prabhupada told Prajimna Panditji that his disciples should study his books just like the lawyers study their law books. Every single word should be studied. So the whole idea of hearing the meaning of these words and the meaning of the verse and these discussions is to, first of all, is to follow Prabhupada's instruction, but to understand what is Prabhupada telling us. What is he giving us? Prabhupada's books is not something that is meant just to put on a shelf with beautiful color on the binding. It's nice to have those books, but it's also very important to understand what he's saying on so many levels. I wanted to read something very important because there seems to be a misunderstanding from many of our friends in the Indian community about this word Hindu. There's a conversation with Śrīla Prabhupāda, and I'm going to read a few texts. This is on July 16th, 1976. It's an interview with a religious editor of the Associated Press in New York on July 16th, 1976. And Prabhupada is explaining a very important point about this word Hindu. Prabhupada says, that may be Hindu religion, but we do not belong to any religion. That may be true for the Hindu religion, what the professor has said, but we do not identify with any religion. We are different from any religious system. Interviewer. But the scriptures are the same. The Vedic scriptures are Hindu scriptures. Prabhupada, no. Hindu religion, of course, the scripture is the Vedic principle, but the word is not Vedic. This word Hindu is not Vedic word. Bali Mardan, Hindu is not Sanskrit. It's just a popular general term. Prabhupada, Vedic, Vedas, that is real, the word. But they have taken it in a different way. Actually, the Hindu, this name is given by the neighbor Mohammedans. There's a river called Sindhu that's currently in Pakistan. That river is still there. It is now in Pakistan. So outside the border of India, the Mohammedans, they used to call the inhabitants of the neighborhood of that river Sindhu, Hindu, because they pronounce S as H, Sa as Ha. So this is the origin. So Hindu is a title given by the Mohammedan neighbors. It is not found in the Vedic literatures. Interviewer, oh, I see. That is like most religious names derive quite often out of ridicule or scorn, like the Quakers. That was originally a title of scorn, and Methodist, they were the methodical ones. That was title of scorn, and the Baptists were the baptizers. Prabhupada, real Vedic principle is called Varnashrama, observing the principle of 4 Varnas, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya. It is very long science, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. This is called Varna, and Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. This is called Ashrama. So the Vedic civilization is called Varnashram Dharma, not Hindu Dharma. This is later contribution of the so-called scholars. So this is a very important point. Prabhupada is giving a historical explanation of where this term Hindu has come from, so people could understand the real science, the Varnashram Dharma, the Sanatan Dharma. Recently, I was reading a conversation with Prabhupada who was explaining how in Eastern Europe, Southeastern Europe, there is a body of water called this Caspian Sea. And Prabhupada said that is a place where Kashyapa Muni, the great sage Kashyapa, went to practice his austerities. And eventually that got translated in local language as Caspian Sea. But it's really the Kashyapa place where Kashyapa Rishi went to practice his austerities. Hare Krishna.
Yes, and thank you very much for that insight on the term Hindu and how it's misunderstood in terms of Krishna consciousness. And you were mentioning about this godbrother of ours talking about Neon ISKCON, whatever that means, but how it's become Hinduized, how the mission is changing for financial gain, because the congregation largely in America are people that are immigrated from India into America and Canada. And they have a natural affinity for spiritual life. They're naturally attracted to Vedic teachings and Vedic philosophy. But due to desire for material advancement, I mean, that's why you leave. You come here to become so-called successful. The process of spiritual life is much different than given by Śrīla Prabhupāda in his books and teachings, which are very strict. Like we have different rules that we follow, that a lot of people that when they come from other countries, they adapt to the country that they're living in. For example, they'll go to McDonald's, or they'll eat Kentucky Fried Chicken, or they'll start to drink, or they'll start to spend all of their time making money. And in this way, they become orientated into the Western way of life, which is so far away from the purpose of human life. And this is very unfortunate, Yashodanandana Prabhu, how the Kali Yuga has taken control of this human society. And now we see it is becoming not more and more advanced, more and more degraded. This degradation is everywhere. And this is sending everybody to a lower birth. So this Krishna consciousness movement, Janaspriya, is a great welfare work. Prabhupada talked about it in the purports today in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, that the highest welfare work is to help an animal, a so-called human, rise out of this conditioned state of ignorance, controlled by the modes of passion and ignorance. And we're all subjected to that, unfortunately. But at the same time, we have a formula for success to rise up through this program of hearing and chanting. We discussed this yesterday. I wanted Jonas Priya in Hawaii maybe to share some of his insights, Yashodanandana Prabhu, with our group this morning. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Jai Śrīla Prabhupāda. This is my humble obeisances. Yes, very, very nice class as always, right to the point. The first point that we have to understand, as Yogananda was explaining, is that what Prabhupada always pointed out, we are not the body. So human life begins when we inquire, who am I? What's my purpose? Why am I here? So these self-appointed gurus, they have deviated so much that there's a whole new philosophy. Why? Because they did not follow the instructions of Śrīla Prabhupāda. So they created their own philosophies, and we see that this deviation is simply creating wars, even in between them, in between the disciples, in between the gurus. So when Prabhupada was here on the planet, it was so beautiful when he was physically here with us. You could go to any temple in the world and you felt at home. And now if you try to go to any temple, you'll be scared because you don't know who's going to say what. And actually, most new devotees don't even know anything about Prabhupada. These self-elected gurus are encouraging their disciples to read their books before they read Prabhupada's books. So that just shows how far their illusion has gone. And they're into this I, me, mine philosophy, and how could I become famous? How could I be worshipped? And so simply we understand that these people, along with the disciples, they all end up in hell. This is what Prabhupada says in the Bhagavatam. So we have this very, very rare opportunity of having this body and being, by the grace of Krishna, put in a situation we could actually contemplate a spiritual life and follow it. And although we might not be perfect in following this principle, we're not speculating, we're not making anything up. On the early days in the New York temple, the devotees were chanting some mantra, and Prabhupada came in. And Prabhupada says, "What is it that you're chanting?" And Prabhupada, the devotees were very proud. Said, "Prabhupada, we're chanting one of the verses of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam." Oh, and Prabhupada said, "Oh, that's very nice." He said, "But Lord Chaitanya didn't tell us to chant that. He told us to chant Hare Krishna." So even though we might think that we're on the right track, if we don't follow to the letter the instructions of Śrīla Prabhupada, then we are stepping in a landmine field, and we could get blown up at any moment without even knowing what happened. So this Hinduizing of ISKCON is becoming so extreme that actually there's some story going around right now about in some ISKCON temple, they're chanting Om Namah Shivaya as part of the program. And this is just the beginning of the end. So we'll see that these things, Krishna will correct these things. And Srila Prabhupada said, somebody asked Prabhupada, could you be replaced by anybody? And Prabhupada said, yes, Lord Chaitanya could replace me. So if anybody could come up to the standard of Lord Chaitanya, then yes, we'll accept this person. But we see that due to the illusion, just like Vishwakarma was saying, people are picking up doggy stool thinking, oh, this is so wonderful. And playing with Maya's toys that Maya gives us the temptation with this or that toy. So this is simply an illusion, and we should be, by now, after 50 years of hearing Prabhupada, we should really wake up and just say, if I found this quote of Prabhupada is my favorite right now. It says, whatever Krishna says that is good, and everything else is bad. He says, why complicate your philosophy? Hare Krishna.
Unity that we have is a miracle. I was listening to a tape yesterday of Śrīla Prabhupāda, and he was speaking to the audience. He goes, oh, so many people are saying that I've created so many miracles. And Prabhupada goes, yes, there are many miracles. That's true. But if there's only one miracle that I've done, it is I presented the philosophy as it is, how I heard it from my spiritual master, with no change. That is the miracle that he presented to us in his books, his tapes, in his letters. And the other point is, Janis Priya, that whatever the Acharya speaks, and this everyone should understand, that is Shastra, because the Acharya is Krishna speaking. It is not that the Acharya is simply concocting philosophy. Prabhupada explains, we do not concoct philosophy. Everything is based on Shastra and Guru. It comes from Krishna, and it's coming from his spiritual master, and from him to us. And in this way, we follow very succinctly, everyone, in the footsteps of our spiritual master. We have Sweta Saxeni in Ethiopia. Is your microphone available, Mataji, to maybe speak to us on a few points you might have in terms of today's class? Sweta C. Saxena in Ethiopia. Maybe your microphone's not working. Yashodanandana. Prabhu, could you further articulate some ideas based on our discussion?
I think it's a very important point that has been brought up by Janas Priya in Hawaii, because what's happening is we see that the standards and the proper way of conducting Krishna consciousness activities in sadhana or practice, spiritual practice, was given and established by Prabhupada. And when devotees start to manufacture or invent their own concocted way, it creates a disturbance. Now, this is predicted by Rupa Goswami in the Nectar of Devotion. Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatrika Vidim Vina Ekantiki Harer Bhaktir Utpatayeva Kalpate. There's a specific Sanskrit word that Prabhupada has emphasized several times in different lectures, utpat. Utpat means disturbance, chaos. That if one practices devotional service without proper reference to Shruti, Smriti, and Puranas, and the direction of the Acharyas, then it will create a disturbance in human society. And we have seen this actually. When devotees behave whimsically or independently, it creates a havoc. There's a famous lecture Prabhupada gave how you describe how a great institution was ruined by whimsical ways, whimsical behavior. And we're experiencing the same thing. And some devotees are seeing what's going on. They're complaining about a mission drift. What you really have is a little bit more than a mission drift. You got a broken succession here because of concoction, whimsical behavior, and manufacturing different interpretations. This bogus idea that people had that because Prabhupada is not here physically, people cannot accept him as Guru. This is the worst poison. This is simply nonsense, misinterpretation and speculation. Prabhupada warned about this. He's given the one. He was asked directly in 1975 in Berkeley, what is going to happen to the movement when you die? Prabhupada's immediate reaction: I shall never die. I shall live from my books and you will utilize. In July of 1975 in Berkeley, California. So this nonsense idea that somebody is going to act thinking that their physicality is now more important than Prabhupada, this is simply nonsense. Very important point. I see that our friend Nilesh Prabhu in Miami is there. He probably has some very good insight to share with us.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
Prabhuji, I had a question.
Mhm.
You had sent some emails about Prabhupada's this talk that I shall never die and I'll live in my books. And there was another quote which was over there, which I'd never seen before. Where it says, after me, there'll be no other person. After me, there'll be no other guru.
This was a conversation very early on in 1967 in New York, where one devotee, Rohinu Kumar, at that time brahmachari, he personally told me that story, where somebody went and asked Prabhupada, who's going to be your successor after you die? Prabhupada said, after me, there will be no more acharya meaning like him. So Prabhupada was very, very careful to basically explain in his books how the disciplic succession or the teachings would be continued. Also in November of 1977, a few Indian gentlemen went to Prabhupada and they wanted to request that an Indian should be the leader of the organization of ISKCON. And Prabhupada said, we don't have no such thing as Indian or this person. Anybody who follows, I'm paraphrasing here, anybody who follows can be leader. Prabhupada did not designate any successor acharya, a singular or a group of acharyas. What he did, from the record that we have, the available record, is that he nominated certain individuals to represent him in a capacity of officiating on his behalf. Now, they don't like that, and the reason is for that, the reason they don't like that, because they've developed a philosophy of minimum qualification and maximum puja and maximum money grab. But that is not the philosophy that Prabhupada taught. Prabhupada taught first become qualified, then become a spiritual master. Now, the problem is now it's come to the concoction that we have people by election, by vote, and this is the breakdown of order that Prabhupada gave. This nonsensical idea that Prabhupada said because he nominated certain individuals to manage the society, therefore they can say anything, they can do anything. No, it's not like that. There's a conversation on a morning walk in September of 1976 in Vrindavan. Prabhupada said, Krishna doesn't need any temple president or GBC. He can do the work himself. Krishna does not depend upon any temple president or GBC. It's right there in a Prabhupada conversation book. Of course, Prabhupada gave positions to different people for service, but if somebody thinks that he becomes puffed up and thinks they can concoct and manufacture interpretations and invent new mantras and all kinds of nonsense, that's when you have the so-called mission drift and the breakdown of the actual teachings. But that conversation, I've not seen that conversation in any recorded form, what you're referring to, but I have reason to believe that this was accurate, because we don't see that Prabhupada ever appointed any acharya after him. There's no record of it. I mean, recently, this whole argument about living successor, my point is, where did we get these ideas from? We hear from Prabhupada. Well, where did Prabhupada hear these ideas from? From his guru, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Where did he get his idea from? From his father, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Why is it that there's no record anywhere of Bhaktivinoda Thakur in 1914 when he departed, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur when he departed in 1937? There's no record anywhere of them appointing or nominating or selecting a living acharya after them. Did they know about guru, about living guru? The fact is, they were not interested in this neo version of caste Brahmanism. They were only interested in preaching through literature, Briyat Madanga, the preaching. That was the major feature of their mission. This idea that they appointed some successors, and this is all nonsense. This is all fabrication. People should not fall for this nonsense propaganda.
So then, based on what you are saying, is that if Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati did not nominate anybody, and he said that one of you will become the self-effulgent guru or acharya, one of you, not several of you, just one of you, and that has been verified by looking at the transcripts also, then obviously Bhakti Keshav Maharaj, who is the spiritual master of Narayan Maharaj, he is not authorized to initiate. So if he is not authorized to initiate, then his disciple, Narayan Maharaj, becomes unofficial. So anything what Narayan Maharaj says is also humbug.
There is a letter on the 28th of April 1974 to one Rupanugadas, who was at GBC at the time, where Prabhupada says, amongst my godbrothers, none of them are qualified for becoming acharya. Now, he didn't say except this one, except that one. No. Prabhupada warned. He did not want ISKCON to become Gaudiya Math Part 2 with this nonsensical falsehood that everybody just jumps and become acharya. And I know what they'll say. They'll say, oh, no. Prabhupada said in one letter, when the guru departs, everybody can become acharya. Well, that may be, but there's also restriction. You can't do everything independently or whimsically. In Nairobi, Kenya, Africa, in October of 1975, they asked Prabhupada directly the question. An Indian gentleman asked Prabhupada, how did you become the leader of the Krishna consciousness movement? Prabhupada said, when my guru ordered me. And Prabhupada goes on, he says, you cannot become a guru independently, only when the guru orders. They knew, even if that letter was written in 1975, why is it that in 1977, they went to Prabhupada and asked him that question? Because they knew nobody would accept their statement unless it was verified by Prabhupada. If this proof of this May 28, 1977 conversation is such evidence of their so-called appointment, why didn't they bring it up and play that tape in front of everybody and discuss it with all the temple president, all the sannyasis, all the senior devotees at the meeting at Mayapur in 1978? Why is it that that transcript of that tape took almost 10 or 11 years to come out, the complete unedited transcript? Why? Why is it that Prabhupada's will took 9 or 10 years to be fully available to devotees? What was the political agenda of people who suppressed that information, people who suppressed the discussion? Why did these same individual suppress and deny Prabhupada's desire to have all of his disciples come to Vrindavan? We're supposed to believe the integrity of these people after they suppressed Prabhupada's last desire to see all of his disciples to come to Vrindavan. Devotees should not be naive. They should be not naive to believe all of these stories and these fabrications. Very important. Maybe Vishwakarma can shed some light on this too. Hare Krishna.
Well, it's very true, Nilesh, that I was in India in 1978. I was actually elected by our peers to be the chairman of the Temple Presidents Association back then, because the GBC was a top-heavy organization, and they were simply manipulating territory for their own personal purposes. That there is no question. And it was very apparent because I was the first person to sit in a GBC meeting in Mayapur in 1978. I sat between Bhavananda and Bhagawan, and not one mention was made of these directions given by Prabhupada to us, to any of us, on how he wanted the mission to be handled after his departure. Not one mention. So it's obviously a conspiracy by some people who had taken these roles to cover this up so that they could move forward and divide the world up according to zones and become zonal guru acharyas. And in Toronto, we had a majestic building that we had bought for Śrīla Prabhupāda. He called it a topmost triumph for Krishna. And they were constantly coming there. Hansaduta came, Tamal Krishna came, Satsrup came, Gopal Krishna came, Keith Ham came, all of them trying to politic to get the peace of the empire that was sitting in Toronto north of the Parliament buildings. So this is the reality, and it's important for people to know the history, and then we move forward accordingly. One more point, Prabhu, please go ahead.
So you were talking about the zonal acharya system, and
Yes.
looking in hindsight,
Yeah.
I was thinking, in hindsight, if you were to look at it, that these people were so stupid that they declared themselves as gurus, but the purpose was they were supposed to be ritviks. So the
Yeah.
zones were meant so that anybody who wanted to get initiated would go to that zonal ritvik who is nearest to him and get initiated to Śrīla Prabhupada. But these people divided it and called themselves zonal acharyas and divided on geographical boundaries when an acharya has he's transcendental.
Yeah.
He's beyond time, space, and matter. So they were so stupid that they did not even realize this mistake, and they rushed into the zonal acharya system, and then they realized, no, we can't do that, and they regressed backwards. So if you look at every step which they made, even when they were trying to fool, they could not
Yep.
fool intelligently. They were so
Yep.
stupid. They're so involved with Maya. Am I right in this interpretation?
Yes,
Prabhu?
well, I'll answer. You're very right. And this is an unfortunate history, and it's important for us to study it so that we can understand how we should remain faithful to Śrīla Prabhupada in his Vani incarnation. This is an important point in terms of our philosophy, that Prabhupada lives in sound, and that sound is the method by which we elevate ourselves out of the conditioned state of life. One last comment from Yashoda, and then we'll move to the conclusion of today's discussion. Please.
I think that I'd like to take exception to one term that you use about stupid. There was a lot of stupidity involved. I think the word that we can agree on is the word motivated. And the proof of that is when they try to reform this whole system, they invented this voting system, this election system, which made no sense. This nonsensical self-assumption of Acharya created such a chaos and disturbance in the society, utpat, that when they realized there was such fall downs and controversy and political chaos, rather than go back to Prabhupada's instruction that people should be Prabhupada's disciple, initiated on his behalf by officiating representative, they basically exasperated the problem. They exacerbated the problem. There was one devotee in Denver who analyzed this. He says, now the disease has become an epidemic by this voting system. They concocted this voting system, which makes no sense. Nowhere in Prabhupada's book does he describe how you become an acharya by voting. You can vote somebody in a position, a management position, but acharya, giving initiation, that's a spiritual position. That's why Prabhupada did not want this Gaudiya Math Part 2, this Gaudiya Math style imitation acharya. And Prabhupada warned about this in April of 1977. Prabhupada said, you can cheat, but it will not be very effective. Which reminds me of a conversation that devotees have pointed out in New York in the summer of 1971, where Prabhupada was asked, oh, Prabhupada, can we open hundreds of temples? Prabhupada says, yes, you can open hundreds of temples, but if you do not follow the instruction of the spiritual master, it will simply be show bottle. The Prabhupada's show bottle is like in India. You got a colored bottle and you have some liquid in it, it's a show bottle. It has no effect. So similarly, yeah, people say, oh, we have hundreds of temples. Oh, yeah. Is that why now you're inventing mantras and doing car pujas and demigod worship and all kinds of concoction? This is the result of your nonsensical self-appointed status? Anyway, we're going to be having some special events with various devotees on a roundtable discussion. That's going to come up in a couple of weeks. We're discussing the format. And we're going to be discussing a lot of these Prabhupada's original instructions, what happened, how it can be rectified, what is the disciplic succession, how it was broken, what does Prabhupada say about this disciplic succession, and how to follow the disciplic succession, how to be connected, get a bona fide connection with the disciplic succession, what is Vani, what is Vapu, all of these important topics. We're going to be discussing it very nicely, and it's going to be available on our website, on our channels. But thank you so much for your wonderful questions. Thanks everybody for participating, for your patience, and I guess we can go on with the next phase of the program.
Yes, and we wanted to remind everyone we'll be back on Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for our weekly reading of Chaitanya Charitamrita, and next Saturday and Sunday, Bhagavad Gita, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, and visit Hare Krishna Society YouTube for further recorded classes. We have over 250 classes that we've done, and we'll carry on with that work moving forward. And simultaneously, I recommend everyone to constantly search out Prabhupada's lectures online. You'll find them very informative and enlivening and a great source of inspiration for discussion. And you can bring your questions forward at our discussions here at the Prabhupada Disciples Association and Hare Krishna Society Zoom meetings. Thank you very much, everyone. Very enlivening, very ecstatic session today, very informative and educational. There's nothing better than transcendental knowledge received from the lips of the pure devotee and from his bona fide disciples. All glories to the Sankirtan movement. Chant along, Hare Krishna.
Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Śrīvāsadeva Gaur Bhakta Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Śrīvāsadeva Gaur Bhakta Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Śrīvāsadeva Gaur Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Vanchakalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Vijay Pandit Prabhu, Bhakta Zoran is there. Oh, come va, Bhakta Zoran, come va.
Bene.
Molto bene, molto bene.
Sì, sono contento molto. He's
Tutte
happy.
le glorie, so divine grazia Śrīla Prabhupāda.
Haribol, tutte le glorie.